You're listening to The Coaching Divas, a podcast for everyone navigating the twists and turns of corporate life.
Follow along as we chat through common workplace situations and extend the coach approach to help you handle them with ease.
We offer a cross-sectional view that spans generations, positions, workplaces, and lifestyles.
We're your hosts,
Claudia Jones,
Daniela Velkovic,
and Misha Jethba, and we are
The Coaching Divas.
Welcome back to the pod. You know it, you've heard it, and let's be honest, you may have been a part of it at some point. Workplace gossip. It can be as harmless as speculating on who took the last donut, or as damaging as spreading unfounded rumors that can impact careers and company morale. Today, we are spilling the tea on this simmering topic.
Oh, gosh,
Very
I love
nice.
this topic.
Very nice, Misha.
Thanks for having us jump into this complicated topic, I think, to some extent. At least from what I've experienced. What do you think, Claudia?
Oh, never an easy topic by any means. Where do we go with this? So many different places. There's personal gossip, where people's reputations are may or may not be put on the line. There's company gossip as to what's going on with the organization. And of course, there's always family gossip as well, and family gossip that comes into the office and doesn't need to be there. Do we need to bring it out? So what have we experienced?
I think I'm going to add in a couple of additional types of gossip. There's also gossip where if you're an ignorant individual or you just don't understand that gossip is going around you, you may not even be fully aware that it's there. But if we had to, I guess, crystallize it as to what is it, it's people talking to people telling stories.
That's a great definition. Simple but true.
But the context is the workplace.
Any kind of story? How do we like drill that down a little bit more, make it more concrete as to like what exactly is workplace gossip?
Did you hear what happened in that meeting? Oh, what happened? Oh my God, person X raised their voice. What do you mean? I don't know. Person Y just left crying. Oh man. Is she at it again? Are they doing that thing again?
And all the speculation that comes to it. All of a sudden, people start creating ideas and theories as to why it happened, how it happened. And then what are the conclusions? Oh, you know what? Because of this is now going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just someone's speculation. And there you go. It takes off like gangbusters, really.
That's one that I can think of. Another one I can think of is, oh my God, someone's taking my lunch from the kitchen fridge. What do you mean someone's taking lunch? Dude, I put my lunch in there and I come back at like 1 o'clock because I've been at meetings and it's gone. Oh, what was it in? Oh, it was in that black bag or brown bag. I'm pretty sure I saw Daniela sneak into that and take a look and may have borrowed something. What do you mean? Someone's taking our lunch.
So the gossip it goes from speculative of someone's taking my lunch to accusatory of Daniela is the one taking my lunch. And now that is the gossip.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now you're branded.
Now you're branded.
As a lunch stealer.
As a lunch stealer. but maybe maybe Daniela brought her own lunch in the brown bag. It's not like it's labeled.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The common one I've actually experienced this when I was working for one financial institution. One person would be bringing in one brand of yogurt every time, and for some odd reason, their brand of yogurt ended up not being there, and it would happen intermittently. And it was quite the saga. I don't know if they ever figured out who was taking it, but it was happening, and it was quite funny. I mean, I laughed at it because I thought it was funny, but everyone had their own opinion as to who was taking the Yoplait vanilla flavor.
And what did that do for the office? What did that do for office morale? Like, were people just laughing at it, or did people actually get upset? What happened?
The challenge, I think, with that particular time was that a lot of people were frequenting that kitchen.
Okay.
So it was only people that actually knew the individual whose yogurt was being borrowed, I'll use that statement, that, either felt I am so sorry that happened to you kind of thing. Like there's a bit of empathy, but at the same time, you're in a separate project meeting and you're giggling about it. Like,
I mean,
I did
yogurt
so-
can never be borrowed. It can never be given back.
That's right. That's right.
but you can't help but giggle because, it annoyed that person, right? And now you get into this camaraderie where gossip, I mean, to some extent, I thought that gossip where it's harmless, right? Because, I mean, it's kind of funny, but it is triggering for someone.
It is. I was going to say fair enough, but did that diminish anyone's opinion about the poor victim of the yogurt?
I think I do, and I don't know. I'm trying to replay it. And I think I was a project manager at the time on that project. And I think the person was working with another QA lead. I felt empathy because like I would hate for my lunch to be stolen. And I saw how much it bothered them. But the rest of the group thought it was funny. So to me, there's an interesting team dynamic that's going on there, almost like brothers and sisters kind of teasing each other, right?
Sure.
Kind of tone.
Yeah. So they were laughing at the situation, but how did they feel about the individual that was the victim, though?
I think they were laughing at the situation because that person was there for a long time and tended to be very particular about their things.
Right. Okay.
Right. And that's, to me, I think a lot of groups that work together closely or have worked together for a long time, you sort of do start to create some of those family type tendencies, right?
Nice.
Where you may tease or unintentionally tease the person, a person or a couple of people. But I think that, again, I always use the word, it's a unique culture that gets created.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, is gossip bad in that case? Oh, no, I think it's a part of the thread that keeps us human to some extent, telling a story about someone else, right?
Yeah. And maybe in some ways it's kind of what helps bond the team together, right? You have the yogurt story.
Unfortunately, yes.
As silly as it is, you have the yogurt story.
Right.
So,
right.
I think it can be cautionary too, though, because at some point the teasing could be passive aggressive for how someone really feels about others or the individual or the victim. That can turn into bullying pretty quickly if it's happening more than once. So I feel like it's almost not even gossip at that point. It could, not saying it did, but it could grow into a much stickier situation.
That's true. And I guess maybe you have to understand, again, assessing the whole situation, reading the room, if you will, right, as to how far can we push it. And then if the person truly is upset, then it's not a fun tease anymore. Now it's not fun gossip. Now it starts to get into something maybe a bit more passive aggressive, like you said.
Yeah. It's more personal.
Yeah. I think the other layer to that is I now reflect on it and laugh about it. In the moment, I did feel a bit uncomfortable personally, because for me, as much as, yes, everyone else thought it was funny, I thought it was a bit mean that we're cracking that kind of joke. And, some people don't like those practical jokes. And I think in today's work environment, the notion of empathy and being more conscientious of topics like that is different.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But that said, I still think there are people that will go in and put a bunch of paper and staple things on your desk or tie them down if you've been gone for a week. It becomes a practical joke. You never done
Wrap your whole desk in wrapping paper.
No. Wrap your whole desk in wrapping paper, put balloons everywhere, secure down your...
How much time did you guys have at work?
Oh, there were teams.
Cover your whole desk in sticky notes, Post-its.
Yep.
Waste of company money. That's what I'm hearing.
Now, this is not gossip. This could be referred to as team engagement, but there could be gossip that's occurs from it, especially if nobody comes forward and says, I did it.
Yeah. And then the gossip, too, as to how the individual responds to the practical joke when they come back, right?
Yeah.
Whether they took it on the chin or did they actually blow up about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we're kind of dancing around a pretty important question here. So how do you know gossip is actually happening?
I'm pausing on that one. I'll tell you, I how do I know gossip is happening? If someone says, hey, I got something to tell you. Did you hear? That's usually an opener for me.
Yeah, and sometimes people will just come out. Guess what I heard today? Right? Then they'll ask you, is it true? You're in a leadership position. It's up to you to then decide how you want to tackle that, especially if it is true.
What about if it's about somebody and it can be almost masked as an opinion? So I'll give the example of, let's say somebody has been off of work for the week because they're sick. But somebody else comes in and their comment is, oh, Misha's been out sick a lot lately.
I wonder if she's interviewing.
Yeah. Do you see how that opinion is that opinion turning into gossip very quickly?
That's absolutely does happen. Let's be frank. How many times I'll totally share this story. I don't care what corporate environment I've been. If someone all of a sudden is stepping out, often for a meeting, out of the office, they have to go do this, they have to go do that. And then you start the rumor mill, hey, do you think that person's interviewing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that person has a lot of appointments lately.
Yeah.
That's a comment that's made. It's offhand. It could also be the formulation of an opinion based on what one individual is seeing. But to say that type of comment in a group and then allowing the group to run with that overgeneralization, is that considered gossip?
I think it's gossip, but I would overlay it with the other comment around, hey, I've seen them stepping out all the time. I know that they haven't been happy. How do I know that? That's a hardcore opinion.
It is.
How do you, have you guys, when you've experienced that, how did you feel? Or what did you respond with? I can share what I did, but
Personally, I always just try to let people be themselves and live their lives. If they're stepping out and interviewing, it's up to them. It has nothing to do with me, right? Obviously, they're not happy, and I'm not going to get in the way of things, right?
Yeah, that's
what I do. I mean, I
respond.
just don't get engaged myself. If I see people doing that, it's obviously something's amiss, and it's not. And I've always believed it's not a decision they've come to lightly.
But that's working on the assumption that they are looking. So if we go back to, let's pretend the three of us are in a meeting and one of us has walked in and said, our fourth person, they've been taking a lot of appointments lately. And then the opinion of like, oh, well, maybe, or the speculation, oh, maybe they're interviewing. If we run with that assumption, then our initial reaction is to believe it. So we've taken that opinion and believed it to be gossip that is true. So to your question, Danielle, of how do you respond? If I think back to any situation where I've been in a similar place, I cannot confidently, and I'm self-reflecting at the same time, I cannot confidently say I've reacted the same every time. I think, depending on when you catch me, maybe I've leaned into an assumption and taken it as a fact, and I engaged in the gossip unknowingly, not realizing, oh, wait a second, this is speculative, this is gossip. Maybe I've caught it. Maybe I've said like, oh, actually I have context, like this person's dealing with some personal issues, like let's just leave it at that. Let's not speculate what they're doing in their time. So you squash it as best you can. But it's hard when it's so subtle, when it is not somebody coming up to you and saying, oh my God, I have to tell you something. And it's just an opinion that gets slid in to a conversation so smoothly. Yeah, sometimes you don't catch yourself and you engage thinking it's a conversation when really it could be gossip and speculative.
Yeah. And you're right. You're right. I think as we're having this conversation, I'm thinking I would try to be intentional and not engage. That said, I'm human. So obviously there may have been times, but I know for me personally, I've always been terrible at engaging in gossip, period, full stop. Any full-time job I've ever taken on, I'm usually the last one that knows what the heck is going on in the department. Because again, I don't talk. I go in, I do my work, I focus on executing what I need to execute, share about my personal life, ask about, hey, how are your kids doing? How's your family doing? Whatever, right? But I've always felt uncomfortable talking about a person or personality. And I just think to one job that I had years ago, I was the last person that knew that my boss was a bully. And when I said that to somebody, they said, what do you mean you didn't know? I said, I didn't know. I said, I thought something was weird, but I didn't ask. And I figured something was going on with those people. And it was kind of funny now as I tell the story. It showed how oblivious I was. And then I thought, did I really not care? It wasn't that I didn't care. I have always had the hat on of, it's not my place to ask.
You didn't have the fear of missing out? Sometimes, I know I know myself. I hate it when stuff's going on and I don't know about it. I just want to know what's going on. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be spreading it around. So what's going on? Who said what? What do you mean?
Satisfying your curiosity.
I'm a curious cat. Curious cat for sure.
It almost sounds like gossip can serve different purposes. It sounds like it can almost be a source of information for, folks who maybe don't want to use formal channels. So it kind of goes to, and I'm sure we've all heard this, keeping your ear to the ground in the workplace. It also sounds like it could be, or it serves as a more of an emotional release for like frustration or anger or, annoyance. It's kind of like your venting outlet.
Expand on that. That's big, right? I mean, are you starting gossip because you yourself are frustrated? So you're kind of throwing some opinions out there as fact?
Or, I think that could be part of it. I think you don't even realize you might be starting gossip. You just need to let it out, and you've formulated opinions and you've not chosen a good avenue to express it. You're doing it in a group setting. So now you're facilitating group think that then turns into a piece of gossip. I also think the last form or purpose that, gossip can serve is this is probably the more malicious one. It's the indirect way of surfacing and engaging in a conflict, an interpersonal conflict. So you want to maintain your anonymity, but you want to engage in it. You want to say something about it. So it almost to me sounds like gossip can serve different purposes.
I agree with you completely. Now, and I'll say this from the standpoint of my maturity in the workplace is different today than it was then. And what I do think gossip offers is data points, right? Data points for you to look at situations, culture, personality types. So my interaction with a leadership figure may be one thing, right? But then when I open my ear to how that person interacts with others, I get an opportunity to really learn something else. Now, what I do with that data point is a whole other topic. And to some extent, I wonder if it's okay to be a good listening ear, but to use a bit of critical judgment as to where you share what you hear.
And to expand on that point, would you say that maybe when you understand the culture, you understand that the gossip grapevine? And so you know who's involved in that grapevine. And if you want to maybe indirectly send a message, whose ear you can whisper in and see how far it goes. Yeah. And see what the repercussions can be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because sometimes because you can use it to your advantage as well.
Well, and now we're people use the word play the politics. Well, gossip is playing the politics.
Can be.
Right?
Yeah.
I think to a great extent there is that layer. But then I think the other layer to that is there's gossip that's going to make you feel uncomfortable. Before we started our podcast, we talked about a situation where there was a leadership meeting and there was a gossip that one member of the leadership team maybe let go. And it flew around except for the one person that didn't know. And that's toxic.
And it's amazing no one shared it with them, or they found out on their own somehow.
Yeah, that's toxic to some extent, right?
It is.
And as a personal individual, do you engage in stuff like that? Well, I think it depends on what your value system is as well.
I think we almost start to talk about or lean into ethics here. I feel like we're not saying gossip is good and we're not saying gossip is bad. I would say we're saying gossip is up to your interpretation. It's up to your own personal values of whether or not you want to engage in it in any degree. But if we think about that example that we talked about before we started, that to me almost starts to talk about ethics in an organization and in a workplace, in a professional setting.
Absolutely. But I think if we separate our gossip in the workplace to gossip in our personal lives, there's still a layer of ethics there. Right? Did you hear that person X is having an affair and their husband doesn't know about it?
So you have to ask yourself, why are you doing that?
Why are you doing that?
Why are you doing that? What is it to you? Right? Because
what are you benefiting from sharing that kind of information?
Yeah.
What do you want your listener to respond to? What is the intention?
Yeah, what's the point of bringing it up?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you just, and I mean, we all have people in our lives who just enjoy in, like, I don't like to say this, but they've got nothing else to talk about, so they talk about everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a common theme in many families.
It's a pretty common character trait for some.
And it's sad.
Yeah. And it's part of being a village too, right? You tell stories. Villagers tell stories. Some stories are true and some are not. Some are a bit more malicious. And it's up to that, again, the culture of the village to figure out what to do with that information. Shut it down or carry it forward.
That's
carry it
actually
forward.
a really great analogy. I love that.
Right.
Actually, it's a metaphor. That's a great metaphor.
It is.
Office is like a village. Are you going to listen to the village crier? You're going to listen to the wise person.
So then for our community, how do we help them understand if they want to engage in gossip? How do you do that self-reflection?
I think I use the statement, it's a data point. And we use the second thing that comes up to me is data points. Second thing is we like to tell stories. If I'm going to actually be the gossiper, I guess my question would be, why? Like, what am I intentionally doing if I'm doing that? If I'm listening to gossip, why still comes up? And I'm not going to judge someone for being a gossiper. I think it's building bonds. It's learning to engage in interesting storytelling. It's building, let's be honest, it's building relationships with people that you don't necessarily have an opportunity to build a relationship with, which is where your next job may be.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. It's a part of relationship management. But there is this notion that we have to have a bit of a critical thinking involved in what does this data mean and how do I utilize it?
Yeah. And what are the repercussions once I utilize it? And am I willing to put up with those consequences?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I going to stand back and say, oh, I'm just a messenger here. I didn't start this. I'm just sharing what I know. Is that really kind of disqualifying yourself from any repercussions that could come out of it?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If I think about what's a framework to help you figure out if you want to engage or how do you engage, I think I'll pull from my own practice, my ARI model, ARI. First is build awareness. So whether that's through educating yourself of what gossip constitutes as or shows up as in your workplace. The other is, building awareness maybe through experience. Look back on previous engagements to see, okay, do I truly understand and am I aware of how gossip is going to show up? The second are reflect. Reflect on your values. Reflect on the stance you want to take, what you want to allow, what you don't want to allow. And then the last step, I build an intention. So build an intention around how you're going to hold yourself accountable when you see these things happening moving forward and what you're going to do about it.
Wow.
That's good. That's good.
I really like that. Such a profound way of stating it. It's moving. I don't know. What I'm learning, Claudia, through all of these conversations is the younger generation really have some great tools.
They do.
I mean, I don't think my generation, I don't think we actually talked about this in that context.
No, we were actually told to either shut it down or no, don't repeat it, basically, right? So no, we never really thought about it much other than, well, that's not nice. Don't do that. You're hurting somebody. Shut it down. We don't think about what the whole, using the word again, repercussions could be from this gossip that's going out there and how it impacts people. Or do we actually confront the person who started the gossip and understanding why and how it came about? And again, what their intention was and what it means to the victim. They may think it's just harmless and they may not be aware as to how it impacted the person who was gossiped about. Yet the youngins in the world now actually seem to think more about it. And
it's refreshing.
It is refreshing. It is refreshing. And hopefully it doesn't get out of whack and harm people because now the repercussions seem to be much more serious than they were many, many years ago.
Yeah. Speaking of repercussions, something that came to mind is be aware of how your company stands on gossip. There are some organizations out there who are pretty clear on where they stand and will take action even if you're the gossip spreader.
Yeah.
So make yourself aware of that as well.
That's actually very important.
That's a really good point. Okay, divas. So we've chatted about gossip now. Takeaways. What are our takeaways?
I really love the way that Misha framed it up about your values, intentions, and ultimately I'm going to keep using the statement. It's a data point. And when you think about your values and your intentions, how does that data point? What is the intent? When you hear that data point, decide what you're going to do with it based on your values and intentions. That's how I had to bottom line it. How about you, Claudia?
Yeah, I mean, think beyond yourself and realize that there's people involved in this gossip. And it's not just about you. It's a bigger community. I'm going to go back to my village analogy or metaphor and just say, it's not always harmless. We need to tell stories. That's what we do. But remember, too, what the impact is of your storytelling.
I think for me, it really comes down to remembering that there are negative consequences about workplace gossip, whether that's, the erosion of trust and morale, lost productivity, wasted time, increased anxiety, hurt feelings and reputations, and even attrition, good people leaving because they don't like the toxic environment. So as I recently heard someone say, if you're going to spill the tea, remember, tea stains. So be careful how much you spill. Thanks for listening to The Coaching Divas. If you've enjoyed this episode, leave us a review and follow us on Instagram at The Coaching Divas.
Your ratings and reviews help more people like you find our podcast.
Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with someone you think would love it.
Until next time, we are
Claudia Jones,
Daniela Velkovic,
and Misha Jethba, The Coaching Divas.
If you're going to coach, might as well coach like a diva.